for a long time, we believed, hey, Dak's better, and Dak's going to be the guy that's going to lead them to the promised land. And now I'm not even sure they're better off than they were when they had Tony.
I completely agree. First of all, to add to the sort of media perfect storm, Jerry Jones has a Netflix show coming out this summer. Like, there's going to be and Lord knows what he said in that. Just being around. And whenever anybody's like, oh, Jerry Jones said they're all in. Man, I've been in a lot of Jerry Jones press conferences. He's mostly just kind of freelancing. I wouldn't put much stock into anything that Jerry Jones is saying from at any given point. Like, we've seen the doodles. I think when he said we're all in on next year, I think he meant like we're just focused on it. Like, I don't think he meant we're going all in.
We're not looking ahead.
Yeah. Clearly.
Kevin, as a guy with your hair, do you want to like run a hand through your? There you go. There it is.
I mean, that's we can't throw stones, but like if I were to have lettuce like that.
Yeah, no, he's got great hair.
So I had a big decision to make, boys. I could have done this lettuce right here, which is what I went with, or the other alternative was this little prop here that I got at the Super Bowl.
Look at that lid.
Look at
that lid.
I keep right behind here. So
I love it.
Always with it ready to grab at a moment's notice, because you never know.
You see how he went with the hair.
Yeah, no, he went with the hair, but I would too, because fucking looks great. Who's behind you? Why are these people? Why?
Yeah. So this is the badass wall. You've been on the show, and so what we do is at the end. So what we figured out pretty early is the guys don't like telling stories about themselves. If I said to you, or I said to Eli Manning, like, tell me the time you crushed it, you're going to be like, I don't know, man. What guys like is telling stories about their teammates. Like, they want to tell about the legendary teammates. And so what we've done as a tribute to kind of formalize it is when someone gives a badass, we print out a big glossy. My producer sends it to the CVS by my house. I pick it up and we pin it on the wall here. So we've got all sorts of guys. We got Brandon Jacobs, who was Eli's. We have Dominic Raiola, who Dan Orlovsky put on here because he chirped Tom Cruise one time.
That's
right. At a Commanders game. Willie Rofe is back there.
I see Willie Rofe.
Yeah. Bruce
James
Smith is
Harrison.
back there. Ray. Yeah, a lot of guys.
Trent Williams.
Hey, can I tell you about a time my dad split a guy's lip from the top down to the chin in a football fight? Put him on the wall.
The guy or your dad?
My dad.
Okay.
He split the guy's
lip. All right, we will get that.
It was like
bring
your kids to work day, and the guy brought his kids to work and then started a fight with my dad. What he was like, watch this tomorrow, son. It just didn't go well. I would tell you the guy's name, but probably.
Well, I presume you have to go on Kevin's show to get the story told, to get the picture on the bulletin.
No, it's all right. By the time you'll come on in the fall, and we'll have Big Howie back there.
And
we'll make an exception.
Aaron Donald up there if you have.
We have Aaron Donald back there.
Okay, good.
Who
told you about Aaron Donald? Me.
You and Andrew Whitworth.
Pretty much anybody that knows Aaron Donald would probably put him on that.
So Andrew Whitworth said something pretty interesting. He said that he's the only guy he saw that every day worked out like an undrafted free agent.
That's true. That checks out. Guy was training with knives. They were fake knives, but they were still knives.
Hey, I have an announcement. Today is Aaron Donald's 33rd birthday.
No way.
Wow.
Happy birthday. 99?
Yeah.
I bet he smashes his cake. I bet they just let him destroy his cake.
He probably still won't let himself even eat it.
No. I don't know. I don't know what his diet's like, but he looks great. Okay, so Kevin, a lot to talk about today. Let's just start with the NBA.
Yeah.
You know? Big Magic fan. The Magic were the one win total that I won this year in the NBA. So congrats to the Magic. Congrats to me. Thank you, Kevin. It's half the reason I bet the Magic over. I guess my biggest question coming off of last night. This is what day is it? Thursday. Jesus. Okay, Kyrie Irving.
Mm-hmm.
Big performance early in the game last night. The Mavs pull out a close one against the T-Wolves, and they do it in a fashion where Luka doesn't really get going until the fourth quarter. Great closeout performance from him. But I kind of wonder if the Mavs end up pulling this thing off, could we rightfully call Kyrie Irving the best Robin of all time?
Whoa, that's a great question. He's in the mix. He's in the mix because, I mean, the thing is you do it over different situations. Like Scottie Pippen did it with one situation with one guy.
Yes.
And the 2 years that he was the solo guy, like he didn't even really react that well. Like he wasn't even that. And so I don't even know who in the NBA. I'm not really sure who would be in the mix there, but absolutely to go in and be the second fiddle in so many different situations, perform in so many different situations, I think is completely great. And also, not to take this different direction, like he's acting normal again.
He
and
is,
I'm not
dude.
really. I don't know what happened there. He's just like totally back to being like 2019, 2018 Kyrie Irving, and I'm not really sure if it was like a shtick he was putting on for a couple of years because there was some end game there. I'm not really sure what it was, but he's just back.
I also think people like go through phases where they explore intellectual ideas, even if they're misguided by a lot of people's standards. Like, and when you're 20 something years old, I don't know how old he is now, 32, 31. But in your 20s, you think of somebody as like a full grown person, but they're not. He's 32. He was in his late 20s, dude. If I think about myself at 39 compared to where I was in my late 20s, like I'm a totally different person. I'm the same person, but I have different intellectual threads, like curiosities, theories. Like you just evolve. And I'm not putting thoughts in his head or deleting, certain like sound bites we've had from him off the face of the earth. But what I am saying is like people change. And I'm watching him last night. He looks like he's having a lot of fun. Like I'm watching him on set after the game and they're talking about Anthony Edwards calling him out and saying like, I'm going to guard Kyrie. And he answered the question perfectly. He was like, that's the one thing about Kyrie that I had a hard time, kind of contextualizing some of his comments and some of the avenues he went down is because he always seemed like a really chill guy, like that you'd want to be around. A big smile, smart guy, seems to be a good teammate. Guys like having him on the team. And so it's fun to watch him back where he was, so to speak.
Can you, having been in the locker room, can you answer what makes a good Robin? Like, what's it? It doesn't. There's role players who are just like, I'm going to be the best at this, and they're going to be the 38th most important guy on the roster, but they're going to be amazing at being the 38th most important guy on the roster. But to be really good, but then also accept the Robin role is a very different bucket.
You have to be secure. You have to know who you are, and you have to everything you're trying to prove, like within the terms of being in that situation. Maybe you're not going to be able to prove it all. You can't be the 1A guy, and maybe you think if you're on another team, you can be the 1A guy. But I think a really good Robin, whether that's a pass rusher or a number 2 receiver, is and those are the places that usually shows up. Like being the Robin, like it's either you're going to get the ball or you're going to get rushes, or like when I was Robin to Robert Quinn. I didn't want to be Batman. I was happy to be Robin, because Batman was really fucking good. It made me feel bad about being Robin. I think being a Robin is all about being secure with yourself and being a team guy, which Kyrie's always been a team guy. Like maybe an NBA, like Matt, has there been chapters of his career where he wasn't a team guy?
Celtics, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, but like other than that, when he was in Cleveland, I thought of him as a consummate Robin. I mean, they don't win that final without him.
No, one of the greatest shots in the history of the game.
So I just think he deserves his due in that conversation.
Completely agree. I mean, it's also a mentality where, like, I think it's a little different, but Kevin Kisner, the golfer, he literally said a couple of years ago, he was like, I can't win at a bunch of these courses. My game is just not built on it. And then they said, well, why do you even show up? And he said, because there's a ton of money in 20th place. Yeah. And it's like, once you get that mentality, your whole thing, and I'm not saying Kyrie has that, but like, that's where you settle in and you say, I know exactly what I want to be as an athlete.
Be the best you, and a lot of athletes, the comparisons is thief of joy. It's true. It's true with your sports career, because you sit there and you compare other situations and other players. And, Kyrie ultimately wants to win another one.
Here's a bad question nobody at all will care about. Who would you take at 6-11 last year if you could do it all over again for the Magic, Kevin?
Oh, my God. I still believe in Anthony Black as an athlete. Jet Howard was not the pick at the time.
Derek Lively was right there.
Yep, Derek Lively was right there. We still need to take a lottery pick on a shooter, and then your number one offseason task is still finding shooters. Showed you may have missed on the pick there. We thought maybe he was more NBA ready than he was. He had to spend some time in the G League. I did not. The rebuild's going great, but we left some meat on the bone there in the lottery last year.
Who do you think are good parallels for these four teams that made the finals in the NFL?
Yep.
It was a fun exercise that I was running through this morning where I'm like, who are the Pacers in the NFL? Who, like in the Wolves making a run to a team? Like, do you have any parallels
I have all four.
to share?
So for me, for the Timberwolves in particular, I'm seeing a lot of 2021 Bengals, Super Bowl Bengals, because we have a generational player where we don't know how good he can be this early. And I saw a stat the other day that blew my mind. 8 guys in history were in the conference finals as their team's leading scorer who were 22 or younger. Okay. 7 of them lost. Only one who won was LeBron James. So we get to see a little bit of a marker here. Is he in the LeBron category or is he in the category with some of these other guys where it's going to take a little bit longer? But we didn't know how good they could be this quickly. We didn't know how quickly they could change the franchise. And then beyond that, like with the Bengals, we're understanding the defensive talent as well. Because I saw a stat, Rudy Gobert, I think, held the Nuggets to 3 of 12 shooting in Game 7,
which is akin to shutting down Patrick Mahomes.
100%. And so you have the Trey Hendricksons and the Sam Hubbards of the world, and you're starting to understand that it's not just him, but the culture is being changed by one guy, and then the rest of the roster we're finding out is really, really good. And I also see, like, I remember being in Cincinnati and one of the coaches being like, turn the recorder off because I was doing a Burrow story, and he was like, you got to understand, it is Burrow changing the culture, but it's also Higgins and Chase and Tyler Boyd at that point and what they're all able to do. And then we're going to look back on this in 5 years and be like, this was a really special time. And you look at this Wolves roster and you're like, there's a lot of talent here. It's led by one guy. There's an ignition by one guy, but it's 1 through 12, you know? For the Mavericks, for me, with the Luka thing, because I think we're all waiting around for this, reminds me a little bit of the first Mahomes team, where the defense wasn't quite there yet. I mean, you look February on, they gave up the most layups in basketball, like lazy defense. They still, remember they had to fire Bob Sutton. They had to professionalize that a little bit on the defensive side of the ball, but we saw a proof of concept for what that looked like. And so those are the two I feel most strongly about. The Pacers I threw out maybe because of the pace and the offense and the historic numbers that they're putting up, and Halliburton saying the other night that they're changing the way teams are thinking about how fast
I like where you're going.
It feels a little Miami-ish.
It feels Miami-ish right down to the star player throwing a pick at the end of the game. But the only difference between the Pacers and the Dolphins is the Pacers are here.
Yes.
In the Eastern Conference Finals. So I'm with you on the Pacers. We had the same team.
The only difference, I don't think Carlisle is not a young boy genius. That's
no, he's not. He's not. But I think McDaniel's a really good coach, and
I totally agree.
I still believe that. And he's going to have to make a decision at some point. Does he want to hitch his wagon to Tua? And that's what we're talking about right now. And I'm not going to return the favor and get you to go viral asking about Tua's contract on your show, on my show. It was one of my biggest anti-Tua rants or anti-Dolphins rants was on his show. Okay, so
we didn't clip it. We didn't clip it intentionally, and then they found it anyway.
It still made it.
They found it anyway
because they look for everything. They look for any perceived slight.
We were like, all right, we're not gonna put it out there. We're not gonna do like the Chris Long sounds off on the Dolphin situation. We're not gonna do that. We do that sometimes. We weren't gonna do it out of respect for everybody. And then an hour later, Tuanon was like, "Look what Chris Long had to say. He's sounding off."
They need me, dude. They need me. It's like Cowboys fans need Stephen A. And I'm not putting myself in that category of like influence, but they need me. It's good. Well, relative to the influence of the Dolphins, I'm perfect. Right. And so and then the last team is the Celtics.
Yeah, I didn't have one necessarily, except maybe the Niners, where they're always good. There's always a floor. They find guys like Drew Holiday won them the game the other night, and it's like there's just a floor there where it's like they're always going to be able to find guys who fit the system and know how to play. And I'm not even sure if it's winning basketball necessarily. I'm not even sure if the Niners play winning football. It's just consistency on a play-to-play basis that always wins out.
Well, I went a different direction on the Celtics. I think the Celtics are like the Ravens because we're getting used to some letdowns in the playoffs.
Ooh.
I think Indy's like Miami. We talked about this. I think Dallas is like the Chargers. Like fast forward a year or two, and I think there's going to be a hump that Justin Herbert gets over that's akin to the hump that Luke is hopefully getting over right now, where there was some talk about like, hey, well, what does Luka want? You know, and that sort of thing. And I think there's also that like healthy resentment of Luka in some NBA circles. There's a healthy resentment of Justin Herbert in NFL circles. Like he's one of the most polarizing topics in the NFL. And I think there's a big disconnect because people want to see the results right away as if there's not context around the player. And so I would put them in that category. And then Minnesota, I'm with you, but fast forward, who are the Bengals now? To me, it's the Texans.
Yeah.
You know, everything you said about the Bengals, same things I'm saying about the Texans now. I just think they're so ready to take off. They're so ready to blast off Houston style, man. You know, and it all starts with one guy, but they've got a really nice supporting cast. And the same thing with Minnesota. Now, one thing you said is Ant in the LeBron category, and I love Ant Edwards, and I hope he's the future of the league for all the reasons everybody else loves him as well. But when I think about young LeBron and I think about that Cleveland Detroit series or the Cleveland San Antonio series, like it was abundantly clear that he was the future of the game. There was no like, can he ascend? Is it, you know, it's early. Like he just walked in and he was the whole damn team. And I'll never forget those two series. We were in college.
Yeah.
I feel like it was yesterday. And juxtaposed to Ant Edwards right now. And there's a high standard, high bar to clear. But like when somebody else takes over game one, I know you're tired. You know, 7 games, a bunch of nights in Denver. You're fresh off that. I think he'll be fine in game 2, but you don't want to see Luka take over the fourth quarter and you kind of fizzle down the stretch and really not add a lot offensively in a big game like that.
The West reminds me so much of the AFC in general because like even when the Thunder went out, everybody's like, well, young team, they'll be back. Windows don't work like that in the West anymore, man. And same with the AFC where it's like Wemby's coming. You think about how many elite quarterbacks there are where there are legitimately 7 or 8 AFC teams that I would not be surprised at all if they won the conference.
No question.
And that's how I view the West too. And so I just think there's a lot there.
Yeah, no question. That's probably enough. I will say this, like, I don't think the Indy series is over. This is it's so funny because I was watching Get Up this morning, as I do. And they're talking out of both sides of their mouth because everybody's like, you know, the Celtics have been known to blow games at home and they don't win in big spots sometimes in the playoffs. And then they're like, the Pacers missed a golden opportunity. They're going to lose this series now. You know, I don't look at it that way. The Pacers barely shot any fucking free throws the other night.
I agree.
You know, it's one of those things where they made a ton of mistakes, turnovers. I know that's part of the equation with them, but I think they'll be better. So I'm looking forward to a good series.
First team in history to be inbounding the ball up 3 with 10 seconds left and lose. And like, I don't think that's
Virginia up.
We were down.
We were always down. Okay.
But it was like that. It was
like that. It was like that.
First team in history to lose this way.
Yeah. But for me, it's like I completely agree with you, Chris, where there was a proof of concept last night or 2 nights ago that the Pacers can score a bunch on the Celtics. And the Celtics are going to have to keep up by necessity. Like I thought they weren't going to be able to go this fast. I thought they weren't going to be able to make this many shots. Well, they can. This stuff can work in the playoffs at this round. And so I think it's going to go like 6 or 7 games.
If they get into the big one, is there a team you can remember in recent history that star power was more equitably spread? Like, because I don't think of Halliburton as a superstar.
Well, I could talk about the 2009 Orlando Magic, which was my favorite team ever.
But you had Superman.
But he was like Hito Turkoglu and Rashard Lewis were the alphas of that team.
No question. And that series could have been longer. I remember there was one game you guys blew.
There were 2 games.
Two games.
Yeah, we reasonably should have won that series, and nobody believes me, and everybody tunes out. Everybody tunes out when I do it. Like Simmons, I like half made the point like on Simmons' pod 10 times, and every time Simmons would just hit the eject button midpoint, just be like, "All right, let's talk about something else."
JJ Redick's still mad he didn't play more. And so he's taking it out on the NBA. He's going to be a head coach, and he's going to play all those white-born American players. Hey, if you were JJ Redick, you would not. I have this take that he should not stop. Shouldn't let the Lakers job get in the way of his future.
He should go full Gottlieb?
No, don't go full Gottlieb. Never go full Gottlieb. Never go full Gottlieb. But I mean, he's got such a good thing going.
Yeah.
Like, be best friends with LeBron, do a wine and basketball podcast the rest of your life, work at ESPN, like make boatloads of money, have the best basketball podcast out, like, or coach the Lakers and get yelled at by LeBron in 2 weeks in, and maybe like I would. I said this the other day. Remember when Dennis Miller did Monday Night Football, and everybody's like, "Oh, I remember." Remember when Dennis Miller did Monday Night Football? I think it ends up like that. They're like, "Remember when JJ was the coach of the Lakers?" Like, if I was JJ, I wouldn't do it. That's just my take.
You wouldn't take the job in general. I would take the job, but I would also continue doing my media company. I just wouldn't do it when, like, the one thing, it shows a basketball confidence. Like what Draymond Green has been able to do the last 4 years has been incredible. And like, I have a bunch of friends who work in that company, and they're like, he'll be the number one focal point of the night. Like, we're kicked out of a game or he'll have a bad game. And literally, like, he'll text my friends and be like, y'all ready to pod? Like, that there's a certain, like, and I think there was a game maybe 2 years ago where he literally said, like, I know y'all hate this, but you're going to get this pod no matter what. Like, you're getting this pod. You're get this pod. And so if JJ kept doing it, that's alpha behavior. If he was just like,
that is alpha behavior, but Draymond has alpha behavior where he like doesn't care.
Right.
Like, he just doesn't care. He's just going to do it. And I feel like if you're a coach and you're doing a podcast, it might be a little bit different. If you could enter a JJ setup, coach any NBA team other than the Magic, and you have to, it's basically like you have a best friend that's the star. Which best friend would you want in which team?
Well, the problem with LeBron is that he's close to retirement. He's floated retirement. Right. So you can't, like, it's the old thing about how anytime you enter into an NFL facility, you never want to be the coach's guy. You always want to be the owner's guy. So you need to pick a young guy where you're just going to ride him for 15, 20 years in some cases. So Victor Wembanyama, I would love that. I'd have to learn French, fire up a little Duolingo and get ready to rock.
Yes.
Also, Wemby feels like the guy you need to do the least coaching with. Mm-hmm. Like, what coaching tips does Wemby need? You just get in there.
Yell at Wemby.
Like physically, like, could he hear you? Yeah, exactly. Like,
it's like your child yelling at you.
Hold up notepad so you can see it.
That'd be tough.
Yeah, Wemby would be my number one, but by far. Just the next 20 years, just be like, let's just pass the ball to Wemby.
Pretty simple. Do you think coaching in the NBA is hard?
No. Someone said the other day that Windhorst. I think Windhorst said the other day on a show that.
By the way, Windhorst looks great lately. I don't know if he's been working out, but he looks great. Been getting sleep.
That's my guy. He said that the coach is realistically like 7th or 8th most important person in a facility, and I tend to agree. Like, how much does it really matter? These guys win championships and then get fired like 8 months later. It's like hockey coaches now. And
now, I will say the coaches that are in it right now are good coaches. Like, we were talking about this, like Carlisle's great coach, all-timer, and Tibbs, who was just in it. I mean, that's the reason the Knicks were still in it. You could argue it's the reason they're out of it, although I wouldn't. And if you look at the West, like, there's been some really good coaches that have made deep runs. So I feel like in the NBA, it's like there's this player coach model, and then there's the coach model.
Are you at all offended that JB Bickerstaff has been terminated after defeating your team?
After defeating the Magic? Mm-hmm. I thought about that. When I was watching that series, I did not think that was a coaching masterclass by the Cavs. They weren't running plays necessarily.
Okay.
That didn't look good.
Necessarily. Let's talk some football, dude.
Yeah, please.
I want to start in the college ranks. This Jaden Rashada story, who you spoke. Rashada. I have trouble with names. You know that.
Yeah.
All good.
You know who's not
casual here?
You know who knows his name?
Drew Weatherford.
Billy Napier knows his name. 15-5 is the number. He was promised certain NIL perks and didn't get them. Is that the gist of the story?
Yeah, he was promised a bunch of stuff. $13.8 million is what he's suing for. The down payment of $1 million was in the lawsuit promised by Billy Napier directly. That's just that he said, she said kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the crux of it, is that he was offered $13 million to play football for Florida and didn't get any of it.
You know what hurts me about this? I really want to trust Billy Napier. I really like Billy Napier. Like, I want to hang out with Billy Napier. Am I wrong?
You might be able to very soon. I think he's going to become. I think he's going to be down to hang very, very soon.
Yeah. Well, I like
the
Billy
river with
Napier.
you.
And I also like Kirby Smart, who said, hey, no problem. You want my blessing to sue the fuck out of an SEC rival? Like, go ahead. I think this is like, I would liken it to like some country's currency, you know, like coming into question, like the value of the currency. I mean, it's just like, you're fucked. What do you do now? You know, this is a big news story and every kid knows it. And, you know, like now Florida, it's just dark cloud. It's not gonna lift like Kevin's anxiety. It's just gonna sit there.
Exactly right. They did get, as Florida fans are flooding my mentions because I went at them earlier this week, they did get DJ Lagway in the last cycle. Was a pretty good quarterback, really good quarterback recruit. He won't play this year, and we'll see where that goes. To me, this is like a monumental watershed moment because college sports, college coaches just lie all the time. Like the famous story is that Urban Meyer told Jevin Sneed that they were recruiting Tim Tebow as a linebacker just so he'd go. And like, there's no repercussions for that for 20 years or 100 years. And the whole thing with the NIL landscape was, it's the Wild West. There are no rules. You can do whatever you want. Well, now we get to see if the courts agree that it's Wild West. And I think there's a power shift there. And I've had some disagreements with people this week with like, well, he has to win. No, he doesn't, because this is going to send a chill down the spine of every collective that's signing fraudulent deals or overpromising. And I think there's going to be professionalization, and the NIL thing is going to die out in like 3 or 4 years once they all become employees and all that stuff. But I just think that if you want to treat kids, if you want to scam kids, you're proving the adults, not the kids, are the scammers, and you're going to face real consequences here.
No question. The adults all over the place, agents, boosters, coaches, like the kids are honestly the most honest people in this equation.
And people are like, oh, well, he's greedy or whatever. He's 19 years old, and someone was like, you want to have $13 million to play a sport that you were going to play for free if there wasn't some weird law that came into effect 2 years ago? Yeah, I would take that. There's no greed there. There's no greed whatsoever. You and I would both do it.
From Stillwater's not going to do it. He's greedy.
Can I ask you what the biggest lie you got in recruiting was? Where you're just like, come on, man.
Ooh, recruiting. My courtship was short. Okay. I was wildly insecure and didn't think I was good enough to play college football because my dad was like, hey, you might want to start doing some guard sets. Like, hey, like, look at those Ivy League letters. You just, and then I watched Florida State at night and I was like, I kind of want to go to Florida State. And I watched, and all the players were unlike LeBron James. And so I was like, I don't really know if there's a place for me here on the D line at Florida State. And then I took one visit to UNC, and the coach blew me off until he knew my dad was Howie Long, and I heard the whole thing. And I was like, fuck, I'm not going to UNC. So I just committed to Virginia and called it a day. It was my first offer. I didn't really get a lot of lies. Bill Musgrave was my recruiting coordinator. He left shortly after, but it wasn't like he lied to me. I did not get a lot of lies. Now, in the NFL, you get lied to because the NFL is an extension of the recruiting process. You certainly have more leverage, but you don't know how they're going to use you. And a lot of coaches will tell you, we don't have a plan. We don't promise anything. And that's usually not true. They're promising certain people things, and then they're just not going to promise you anything. I mean, I can remember signing with the Eagles, and I've told this story a bunch on this pod, where they're like, we're probably not going to sign a defensive end. We're not going to draft a defensive end. I go to Germany to get stem cell. I turn my phone off because 6 hours difference. I go to bed. I wake up, take a piss at 2:30 in the morning or whatever it is, and I have 100 text messages. And most of them are, "Is this bad?" the guy who broke Reggie White's record at Tennessee. They said they're not going to draft the defensive end, but usually it works out. You know what I mean? And me and DB became great friends, and you don't hold that stuff too close to the vest. So, did you ever get a lie in the recruiting process?
Yeah, actually, no. And when I was going to school, it was either Virginia or Michigan. and I visited Michigan twice, and it was 75 and sunny both days, 2 different times of the year.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, this is pretty nice.
Yeah.
And then you look every other day,
Yeah.
it's more like the frozen tundra.
Or they're like, we're going to win a lot of football games while you're here against Ohio State.
Yeah.
So the other question was, because we talked about private equity firms in the NFL last week, which I'm not opposed to. Maybe I don't understand it, but I feel like cash in the NFL, some liquidity, not that these owners aren't rich enough, but they obviously aren't parting ways with all their money, and public has to pay for a lot of stuff. I don't know that PE firms would actually pay for a new stadium or anything. I don't think it's the worst thing in the NFL. Is it the worst thing in the NFL? And then how does it figure in with this Drew Weatherford story in college football?
God. All right. So on the NFL side, I think it's fine. Like a 5% investment. Like, what you think Bob Kraft's going to get bullied around by Bain Capital? He's going to be like, all right, here's your money back. See you guys later.
Yeah.
Like that. It's just cash infusion, which is I'm fine with. I don't think that like all the jokes for private equity. Like, I don't think there's going to be a 10% investment, and then all of a sudden, like, the X, Y, and Z receivers are going to combine into one job, and they're going to be playing with 8 guys in the field. It's like,
right.
Hey, both guards are just doing. There's one guard now. We're just doing one guard because the PE guys looked at it and we're like, nah, we can trim the fat here. I don't think that's going to happen. On the college side, it's significantly different because it's almost offensive, because their business model is going to have to change, because it sounds like they're going to have to give $20 million a year to the athletes from now on. And if you're in a Power 5 conference, which I'm fine with, that's probably low. And every time somebody's like, well, these kids, the freshmen, they end up busting, and, they're not that good, or, only half of them end up playing a snap or whatever. If they were guaranteed sure things, they would get more money than that. That's how that works. Like the bust factor is factored in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think there's any way you can reasonably look at private equity and say this is a good thing for college. And here's why. You're going to have to say, okay, we don't need 11 associate ADs anymore. Like Billy Napier, not to go back to this, but like his whole thing was, we're going to build a super staff. Guess what? Nobody cares about super staffs anymore, man. Like I think the whole thing was he hired like 50 people or something. There's this whole big team photo of his staff. Nobody cares, man. And I think the new coach at Maryland actually had a really funny set of quotes on this time last year, where he was like, we got all these nice facilities the moment the facilities stop mattering. The moment, because nobody cares anymore. It's like an NFL thing. Like, Chris, you weren't like, oh, I'm going to choose this team over this team because I love their training table. No, you're just
usually it was like I chose the team and I was like, holy shit, they actually have a training table here. In St. Louis, we ate Mexican, Chinese, and barbecue in rotation. We didn't have a chef. It was catered in. So this private equity thing to me is a transparent way to put the TV revenues into the pockets of the athletes, which will be happening, and then maintain administrative bloat and the cash on hand for the people in charge. This is going to be a nightmare for future generations of people who like the next AD. Like, oh, we'll get a short-term cash infusion. Oh, by the way, Drew Weatherford, who, by the way, is heavily involved with Florida State. Obviously, his brother's on the board. His brother's on the board at USF. He might be on the board at FSU. I know we did speak last year at that the conference call where they're all trying to get out of the ACC. But he's gonna own 3% of the team, and he's gonna be able to say, "Hey, it's time for." I don't even know what a margin call is, but I'm gonna say it's time for a margin call, boys. It's time for a margin call at Wake Forest. No, that's just not gonna work. And so I think I don't trust that at all. And I also think there's not enough powerful people in college staffs right now who are going to be able to keep these guys at bay in the same way that NFL owners would be able to. Did Drew Weatherford play us in 06 when we beat him?
Drew Weatherford at Florida State 05 to 08.
Or Xavier Lee.
Yeah, dude, I hit him so fucking hard, and I guess the joke's on me because he's like rich as fuck.
Maybe.
Like, how
do
rich
you
is
think?
he?
Is this like an Oppenheimer situation? Do you think that hit led him?
I don't know,
into
dude.
destroying college football.
People make the Chris Turner thing a big deal. The Maryland game. Yeah. I hit Drew Weatherford just as hard, and I did not think that Drew Weatherford would end up being richer than me at some point.
Well,
is this his money? How does this work?
It's called
I think
Weatherford
his brother
Capital.
His brother Will Weatherford runs the capital thing, but then I think he is partnered with Redbird here, who's a different entity.
Yeah, joke's on me.
Just create something called Long Capital.
Yeah, Long
Capital. That's a great name.
That's a really good name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
A couple NFL topics. Guys, lead me through because I don't even remember what we wanted to talk about. It's a slow news day.
All right, so we got some coaches potentially on the hot seat this season. Kevin, I'm going to give you a result for a team, and is this result good enough for the coach to keep his job?
Perfect.
Let's say the Eagles go 12-5, win the division, win the wild card, and lose the divisional round.
Now let me color this in a little bit. Jalen Hurts gets back to normal. He's not the MVP candidate he was a couple years ago, but he's a franchise quarterback.
And if they win the division,
if they win the division, he keeps his job.
The divisional round.
If they win the division, he keeps his job because.
Well, I might fire him just because they had to play in the wild card. Like, how do you like? We have a bye, sir.
I think the threshold is pretty high for him to keep his job because the coaching talent available is going to be generational. It's going to be Belichick. It's going to be Mike Vrabel. Yep. It's going to be Pete Carroll in some cases, and then whoever gets fired this year or can't come to deal with a contract, whatever. The Eagles have fired a lot better coaches than Nick Sirianni. And I think that Jalen Hurts got to take literally just have a rebound season to his 2022 form, as you just said, Chris. They're going to have to win the division, and they're going to have to play smart football because the team was just I'm so against the idea of saying like, this team is broken. This team is beyond repair. They were in an unrecoverable stall last year to the point that they were playing a Bucs team that was just okay. And no one in the world was like, this team is capable of beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No one in the world thought they could.
Except for me who bet with my heart that night. I was like, fuck it. There's only so much action left.
Does your brain ever seize up? Because listen, the first seed gets a bye now, and then 2 plays 7, 3 plays 6, 4 plays 5. Is that not the wild card round?
Yes. So
that is the wild card round.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So it's totally you can win a division and be in the wild card. That's what the Cowboys
did
did
last year. I want to retract what I said.
Yeah, we were busting Matt's ball.
Yeah.
Hey, or maybe now we should bust your ball.
Yeah, no, my balls are on
the
table. Yeah. My bad.
All right, next team, Cowboys. I'll go 11-6, second in the division, win a wild card game, and then get blown out in the divisional round.
Then they're going to fire McCarthy.
Yeah.
You cannot lose in the wild card round this year.
You can't lose before the conference championship game for Mike McCarthy. You cannot lose. And like I thought the Cowboys were going to make the Super Bowl last year. And then I'm looking at it at the end of the year, and I'm looking at the process I had to get there. And I was like, I picked a team to win the conference that looked at their roster and looked at their franchise and said, you know what? We want more Mike McCarthy. We want more. Yeah. We want, not only do we want to retain Mike McCarthy, we want to make him the play caller. We want to we want to get rid of the guy who had success. By the way, Kellen Moore, all perennially overrated, and that's
bad news for the Eagles.
It is bad news for the Eagles. But anyway, like I think that McCarthy, it has to be even this Dax might be Dax last year there. Like the expectations have to be conference championship game, and it has to be also like a dignified conference championship loss, in my opinion.
Which is why, to me, you're not going to see Mike McCarthy the year after this next year, because I looked at that team. I mean, we just got done doing our breakdowns of every roster, and you're going to be asking that defense to do a lot more than they're accustomed to. Mm-hmm. I mean, playing defense in the NFL at a high level is tough, but it's a little bit easier when your offense is firing on all cylinders. It gets harder when you replace Dan Quinn. It gets harder when the offense might be behind the sticks some. They don't have a running back group to speak of. Their depth at wide receiver is not great. The offensive line is retooled, and Dak is a guy you're not even giving a new contract. So, I just don't see how this team wins more than 10, 11 games this year. And if they win that division, then Sirianni should be fired.
I also don't believe in distractions necessarily. You're far more equipped to talk about that than I am. I just think that whenever we say this could be a distraction, it's normally not. Most guys just keep to themselves. Dak Prescott entering free agency, true free agency, which we've never really seen with a quarterback that good because he's better than Kirk Cousins, is going to be a media apocalypse. A media apocalypse every single day. topic on not just Get Up and First Take, but like every Dallas radio show. Every time anybody writes a story or is in that locker room, they're going to be asking every single person about Dak Prescott's impending free agency. That's something to me that's actually going to hurt the team, because most teams handle their business. Like most teams are just like, oh, we have a quarterback we want to keep. Here's money. That's how this works. And the Cowboys are like, maybe the market will bust.
I would argue it's the perfect storm. Like what you're talking about. It's just like we're at this point in sports media where this thing can become a distraction. I mean, we have more coverage than ever. It's the biggest market in the NFL when it comes to the media and coverage. And on top of that, they've had to wait so long. And you just feel like, I said this after the Green Bay game, if you look at Dallas and you look at Tony's run, and everybody kind of resents Tony's run because he couldn't get him there. The Dak run is much the same. And, when you look at their playoff performances, what's happened ultimately, for a long time, we believed, hey, Dak's better and Dak's going to be the guy that's going to lead them to the promised land. And now I'm not even sure they're better off than they were when they had Tony.
I completely agree. First of all, to add to the sort of media perfect storm, Jerry Jones has a Netflix show coming out this summer. Like there's going to be and Lord knows what he said in that. Just being around. And whenever anybody's like, oh, Jerry Jones said they're all in. Man, I've been in a lot of Jerry Jones press conferences. He's mostly just kind of freelancing. I wouldn't put much stock into anything that Jerry Jones is saying from at any given point. Like we've seen the doodles. I think when he said we're all in on next year, I think he meant like we're just focused on it. Like I don't think he meant we're going all in.
We're not looking ahead.
Yeah, clearly. But the thing you just said, I just think that there's first of all, there's so much blow potential, but then beyond that, the reason that they don't have these great runs in the postseason is they don't maximize the roster. They draft really well, and then they use free agency in spots, which is what you did in 2003. It's not what you do now. You have to take huge swings in order to win a conference now. You have to take, like the Niners had a really good pass rush, and they were like, what if we traded for Chase Young? What if we added strength on strength? That's what you actually have to do, is go out and make these big swings. And I remember when Thomas Mitchell was on my show last year, and he was talking about how Howie Roseman gets so aggressive at the trading deadline. And then also, if there was an incoming call, Howie would always ask for a second round pick for anybody. Could have been probably, you were probably about to retire, and Howie was probably shopping you for the 33rd pick in the draft. Okay.
He actually was shopping me for a 6 at one point, I think.
But then I remember Cowboys reporters like quote tweeting and be like, meanwhile, Jerry Jones's phone doesn't work. Jerry Jones just hasn't been an outgoing call in Dallas in 30 years. And outgoing calls are how you win the conference now, man.
Actually, somebody called and wanted me, and they were willing to send a 5 or a 6, and he jacked the price up. Nice. Yeah. So
before which year?
This was last year.
Last year.
Yeah. I mean, the way I was running around,
all right,
I'd have made that trade.
Staying in the NFC East, Macon's team, the Giants. Let's say they go 9-8, third in the division, and just miss the playoffs via tie breaks. But Daniel Jones has a solid bounce back season.
No way. Daboll's out in that situation.
Daboll's gone. Yeah. They have to do something otherworldly for him to keep his job. And I also think like the likelihood of that happening is not high. That's another team where looking at their roster, it feels like almost like Cowboys feel like negligence and like they got here because of negligence and they're not really sure how to stabilize the situation. The Giants to me have made a decision that like, hey, we're just going to ride this out this year. And in a year when Belichick's available, that's going to be the head coach, because they did not add pieces that say like, hey, we're trying to win this year.
So no pieces, and the coach leads them to 9 wins, and you're firing him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's their plan going into the season. They're going to not be great, and then Bill's going to be the coach next year.
If they're 4-13, I'm with you. But that scenario said 9-8.
You're going to fire you're going to keep Daboll after they go 9-8 this year?
Yeah.
And Danny Dimes looks like
Awful.
just Danny Dimes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Awful.
Yeah.
Awful. Yeah. What an awful plan that is.
I need a PE investor for his team.
You've been dismissed from Long Capital.
Dismissed.
I think Daniel Jones is a top 5 crushed it candidate in the entire NFL. He was never very good. He's going to lead this game with $100 million. He's on stage with Zach Bryan like once a week. Like at some point, Zach Bryan's going to be like, "Come on, man,
Is he up there with Zach Bryan a lot?
He's up there a lot with Zach Bryan." and including a show I went to. No, Shane Gillis was like the onstage guy, and then Zach Bryan was Daniel Jones on the wing. But I believe Daniel Jones has been on stage with Zach Bryan multiple times this calendar.
There is a picture that Lane Johnson sent me the other night.
I have a friend, Jason Gallagher, was there, and he said Lane Johnson's on stage.
Lane was there, and Lane took a picture with Zach Bryan. And not only is Zach Bryan like a miniature human next to Lane Johnson, they were wearing the same fucking outfit. The same fucking outfit. Jeans, boots, a tan shirt, and a baseball hat. And they stood next to each other as if that's not the joke. The joke is that they dress the same. Now, you're not going to be able to find this online, I don't think.
That sort of
after the show, they posed together and they were wearing the same fucking thing. Look at Lane with his t-shirt tucked into his blue jeans.
Looks great.
I saw Zach Bryan maybe 4 nights after Springsteen came out, and so everybody's amped up because it's on Long Island. So everyone's like, Billy Joel's coming out. That's what's gonna happen. That's a new standard. All right. The night before, Pete Alonso from the Mets came out. Everybody had a good time. Everybody's a Mets fan on Long Island. So it's Easter. And his guest is just his dad dressed as the Easter Bunny. And everybody's all pissed off. And then his dad may have had a few more than he should have and just fell off the stage while playing guitar. Dad? Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing.
That's awesome.
The guest was Zach Bryan's dad dressed as the Easter Bunny.
I like Zach Bryan. I'm trying to get into Zach
him.
Bryan. I like him.
I'll send you
Zach
some.
Bryan.
I'll send you some stuff. Yeah. You should.
So you guys are going to have Bill Belichick and Shedeur Sanders at MetLife for the next 5 years.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Or Carson back because you're going to go
investing.
6-12. You can't even nail it.
We'll just turn
18
this into
games.
Shark Tank.
Nice segue.
6-11,
Yeah.
6-12. I don't even know how many games there are anymore. They're talking about 18-game season. Roger Goodell, in 1,000 words, is like, hey, listen, like these are all the reasons why it would work. Ultimately, we make the decision based on player safety. Well, here's a novel concept, Roger. Ask the fucking players what makes them feel safe.
Yeah.
Because they keep telling you that they don't want this. This is like being like, hey, son, ride, just put the seatbelt on. You don't need a car seat.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what's safest. The kid's like, I don't know. I don't feel safe, and that's what Roger's doing. I mean, it's just because I think it's like, obviously, and no amount of preseason trade-off is going to equate to, it's not a game for a game. Regular season games like a fucking car wreck, dude. A preseason game's like a tough practice, so I just don't. They're gonna do it eventually. We're also hearing things about Australia.
Yeah.
He threw in an Australia nugget in this whole thing. The 18-game thing seems inevitable to me, Kevin.
All right, so a couple things about this. I want to quote the great philosopher Kyle Long, who the other day had a great tweet that said on his first day of training camp, when he was a rookie, Roberto Garza asked him how his body felt. He said he's a little sore, but he feels okay. And Garza said it's the best he'll ever feel again. And Garza was completely serious and was correct. And
Isn't that funny? I heard the same thing. Totally different team.
Who told you?
I think Fred Robbins. Wow. It's like they all had a meeting and they were like, hey, if the rookies ask. It's true. They're like, hey, this is the best you're going to feel.
Ever for the rest
for
of
a very long time. I didn't get the ever. It was like till next April.
Okay.
And then, but ever works too. That turned out to be true.
So now you're waking up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, now you're waking up. But I never played, and I'm waking up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, that's true.
I would put it to the players and say, and this is a PA thing too, is there a financial trade-off? Is there a thing where you'd say, for 15% more, I would put my body through another game? I don't know. I'm putting it to you. What's if you're sitting down with George Atala and those fellas? Yeah, what the guaranteed money would need to increase by how much? I mean, it's zero now, but
to me, I'm not much of a. I mean, I'm not a union guy. I am a union guy. I'm pro-union and everything, but I'm not somebody who's like tremendously involved in that process. To me, I would come in guns blazing and be like, hey, yeah, you won 18 games, give us guaranteed money.
Yeah.
And the needle's
or free agency a year earlier.
Or free agency a year earlier, get rid of franchise tag, like pull on some lever. Because, hey, 18 games isn't going to kill us. It's just going to kill us a little faster, right? So, it's not one of these things where it's like, we can't do it. We can do it. 18 games, we can do it. Guys do it all the time. I play with guys in New England that were playing 20 games a year for 5 years.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of them fizzle out and that sort of thing because of the attrition and the physical nature of it. But if you can pull a lever like the franchise tag or up the guaranteed money, then that would be a trade-off for me. But I'm only speaking for myself. Like, I'm very cautious about making statements that could be construed as reflective of the whole. I am not in these meetings, and there's a ton of guys that think differently than me. I look at things pretty realistically.
I think the franchise tag is the one thing NFL owners would fight the most.
Yeah.
They would give up so much because the franchise tag is the number one negotiating lever that has existed and since free agency began, whenever that 30 years ago. So I think there's probably a little more give backs, but yeah, it would be interesting if the PA drew a line in the sand and said you have to get rid of the franchise tag. That would be a fascinating negotiation.
Okay, a couple more things before we let Kevin go.
Mm-hmm.
First down chains. This is something I've been talking about for a couple years here. I know that it makes a lot of sense to put a chip in the ball or go with some optic kind of resolution here where it just speeds the game up and we know without a shadow of a doubt this is where the yard marker should be. But do not lose the chains.
100%.
The chains should stay, even if they're a decoration, even if it's a formality, even if we're communicating what we found out via technology with the chains for people at home. Like, chains are a part of football. And if you take chains away, part of the pageantry is gone for me. I also think this, like, the replay system, people bitch about it and people bitch about officiating. I think the NFL is better for people talking about officiating. Mm-hmm. It has not stopped people from watching the NFL. In fact, more people are watching it than ever. And you could argue that with the technology we have now, the cameras we have now, refs are always going to look bad. Mm-hmm. But I just think it's one of those things that the 3 minutes where we go to commercial or we all huddle around our TVs and they're talking about it in the booth, if they found a way to immediately get the answer they were looking for, pretty much anywhere in the NFL game, like any corner of the game, I would be against that because I think part of football is the stop and start. It's the suspense. It's the human error. Now, if you can mitigate some of that with technology, great, but do not lose the pacing of the game. Do not lose the chains. Do not lose. So what to you guys should be untouchable in the NFL game? Might go away at some point, but in your opinion, what's untouchable?
The ball, for one. I'm curious as to whether has the NFL, you all might know this answer, have they had the data? Has the chip been in the ball?
Yes.
So that they've known for a long time, hey, these officials are like 2 feet off placing the ball 85% of the time.
Is that true?
They've never released that, but the ball has had a chip for a long time. And they've been able to study that. They never released
in the beta stage.
Yeah.
I think
in the beta stage.
You can make it public, but also keep the chains.
Keep the chains,
First
man.
of all, I'm surprised you didn't say Brian Daboll was unreplaceable in football.
Yeah.
Brian Daboll, you cannot touch the sanctity of Brian Daboll.
Yeah.
All right, so you have to keep the chains. Lambeau Field. You have to keep the chains because the drama of the big guys on 4th and 2,
standing over it, and just getting ready to signal we're going this way and running off the field. What are they going to do? Look at the video board like tennis? Watch the little Hawkeye thing? Ooh, whoa! Everybody goes like that. No,
that is kind of dope. That is kind of dope.
That's stupid.
No,
Jadeveon Clowney has a different career without the chain gang. That hit against Michigan in the Outback Bowl, that was because we had a measurement.
Yeah.
Short.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
I think the chip in the ball should be reviewable. I think you could put it on review, but I don't think every down and distance should be a chip in the ball. I think that's ridiculous.
Can you imagine if they went back and were like, let's correct all the chain mishaps we've had? How many different champions we'd have? How many different games would be lost in one that, like iconic moments? And
then are we going to go to second down, 3 yards, 2 feet, 7 inches?
Yeah, I think so. And it sucks. I don't want that.
Yeah.
So I want to keep the chains. I want to keep Lambeau Field. I want to keep outdoor football. I don't care if it whittles down to 5 stadiums. Like Buffalo, we talked to Brandon Bean last week, who's great. Love I don't know if you've gotten him
best.
on, but
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
the
the
fucking
best.
he's the man.
The GOAT.
But I was like, bro, are you guys moving inside? He's like, nah, man. Like we're putting roofs over the fans, but
Yeah.
there's gonna be a big hole in the top. It's gonna be like
They want grass.
Do that because they want grass. Keep grass. Keep outdoor stadiums. Another thing I don't want is I don't want to see Love's gas station like on the Thunder jersey. Like I don't want to see that anywhere. I don't care how many PE firms buy in. I don't care how much cash infusion you need. Keep the unis sacred.
That's a great list. I'm trying to think what else.
The coin toss.
The coin
totally
toss.
Unnecessary, but we need to have it.
We have to have it.
Chris Collinsworth sliding in.
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
I wish I had more time to think of a real list.
We should have prepared for the question we asked.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, last one for you.
Yeah.
Inside the NBA, I mean, I think it's one of these shows, and it's in a hot take, that we're going to look back at in 30 years and be like, that's why we stayed up late. Like, do you remember that? You try to explain to your kids, like, I swear, you were little. Do you remember Chuck and Shaq? Like, they were just, it was magic. There was Ernie and Kenny, like watching them walk up to it's like a part of my life. And I'm not even a hardcore NBA head. And so it's a real shame. And it had me thinking, if you, Kevin Clark, could build out that same show in the NFL. Now, I am on a show called Inside the NFL, which is different. You take me off the show, start fresh, take Ryan Clark off the show. Who do you want to be on your Inside the NFL? And they can be, should we make current players eligible? Like make it 5 years from now? You get a 5-year run?
Okay.
Who are those guys going to be on the set?
It's so funny because, as you know, it almost goes back to like what Bill Burr has said about stand-up comedy, where like a lot of these guys say they're like the 8th most funny person in their high school, but they just pursued it and they ended up getting the cadence right and all that stuff. That's how I feel about a lot of guys who are funny in media, where it's like the funniest guys in the locker room sometimes just disappear to a farm, or they go coach defense at their old high school and they don't do anything. And so I've been around a lot of guys who are really genuinely funny, and you've been around some hilarious people who just don't do media. The one person who sticks out because it's this show, first of all, I no BS, not trying to blow smoke, I would put you on because I think this is an amazing show. I think you see the game in a really special way that is hard to replicate. I would pair you with Michael Bennett.
$5 million a year.
I'd pair you with Michael Bennett because when he was on this show, first of all, someone else I believe was on the show telling Michael Bennett stories that were just unbelievable about how Michael Bennett would walk in and say, "I'm not listening to white coaches today." Oh yeah, he did not see a spectrum.
I'm not listening to no white coaches today. With his high pitched voice,
he did not see a spectrum. He did not see a spectrum on the coaches.
He did though. The thing about Mike is like you hear stories like that and you're like, oh, he's this militant guy. He just hates everyone and like he's super hardcore. Like you could talk to him. He's like talking to a kid. The world is just beautiful to him. Yep. He's so intrigued by everything. He'll talk to you about art. He'll talk to you about music. He'll talk to you about politics. He'll talk to you about football, and he can talk about all of it. He's like a Renaissance man. He's 100%. Also a character. I mean, he's also a character. He'd come in and say, "Oh, my foot hurts today a little bit, guys. Oh, my foot hurts a little bit," and then you'd be out there taking all his reps. Or he wouldn't buy a car when he was in Philly. He was just too cheap. He was living at like the Ritz-Carlton, but would not even rent a car. So I was tasked with driving him home every day, Kevin. And he would hover in the building till 7 p.m. I try to watch film until like 8, thinking he might just fucking get an Uber one of these days. He would be waiting by my car every day. His house wasn't even on the way. So Michael Bennett is a guy that if we did a show right now, we could start with no notes and do a show. I've had some great, we sat next to each other on the plane that entire year. He was fucking awesome, dude. He'd be like, "No white people back here except Chris." Carson, get the fuck. Carson, go sit with the kicker. You know, he was funny, dude. He was funny. He'd watch the same movie every week. I couldn't remember what it was. He watched a movie like 7 road trips in a row. laughing at the same lines.
We got to get this guy on TV, man. Like your conversation with him when he was on the show a couple years ago about Urban Meyer versus Bill Belichick and why one can work in the other. And it was about ruling through fear, which is what Urban tried to do, versus ruling through expectations, which is Belichick. Well, that was his style.
Yep.
And it was just so illuminating. It's like we don't get enough of that on TV. We don't get enough of it on podcasts. It was just really special. I thought about, so there's a couple other guys that have made me laugh consistently. Your colleague Channing Crowder is one of these guys who are just hysterical, cannot stop making me laugh. Darren Bates, who hosts Raw Room, makes me laugh
great shout
all
out,
the
dude.
time. And so I'm going.
He's got the
Michael
JJ
Bennett.
thing going.
Yeah, Darren Bates. Yeah,
because he's coaching
with the
in
Seahawks.
Carolina. Yeah.
Oh, Carolina. Oh, sorry, I thought it was the Seahawks. Yeah,
It was the Seahawks last year.
Yeah.
We'd see him on the sideline, all hype behind Pete Carroll, and then this year I was like, "Yo, do you think you get me a Xavier Legette?" And he's like, "After I get him."
So I'm going with Darren Bates there if he wants to go into the media world or wants to pursue more of the coaching. Then we need a quarterback. I'm going. So first, I thought about like JT O'Sullivan just lobbing bombs and calling everybody a nepo baby.
His thing, he wouldn't want to be on with me. I'm just joking. I think he actually listens to the show. So I like JT's stuff too. I watch his YouTube.
Yeah. But I'm going Orlovsky here. I just think he's generational in broadcasting talent. He'd be he's
Orlovsky
great
in a locker. That's what we would do. We would abuse him.
So those are my four. You, Michael Bennett, Darren Bates, and Orlovsky.
Can you imagine Michael Bennett and Orlovsky on a set together? With just Orlovsky reading off Caucasian recipes. That's his bit, is like, I eat like the whitest foods.
Yeah.
It's pretty
There'd
fucking
be some
funny,
chemistry
actually.
there.
Macon, you have an answer?
I do.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Tom Brady and Jay-Z are on my set.
Michael Rubin.
Okay.
This is vintage.
Reuben
right.
in the Ernie chair.
And
a quick joke.
No. I'm being serious.
Okay, go.
This is a good inside the NFL. Yeah. Tom Brady, Jay-Z, Charles Barkley.
Oh.
I mean, he doesn't watch college basketball.
Right.
And he's great. And then you're going to roll your eyes like, oh, it's not a great answer. Just think about it for a second. McConaughey is the point guard for this set.
It's quite the group.
Whoa.
Football, sort of like that.
To your point, I saw Barkley in the Patriots locker room after a playoff game maybe 5 years ago. I don't think you were there, Chris. And
no.
his level of detail on the team, like he went up to Mike Reese, who's the Patriots board for ESPN, and was like, "You do a great job, man." I'm just like, this guy's locked in. It was going around to like role players talking football. Like Barkley could handle it.
He likes football more than, like, just as evidenced by the fact of how cool he was to me. Like, I'm not a star, and he's a Philly fan, but he treated us in Minneapolis where he forgot that he's been
5 years ago.
5 years ago, he spent the night with us, and he was the fucking greatest dude. And we talked football almost the whole time.
Yeah,
it was like basketball. UVA just won the national championship. All he wanted to talk about was football. I think you hit on something here. The crossover appealed pretty good.
Do you have one?
No, but I do think I could play in the NBA. You could put me in just to inbounds the ball at the end of the game.
Do better than
Halliburton.
Yeah.
Whoever the fuck it was. Josh Allen said he can get some minutes. I like
Siakam to come back to the ball a little bit.
Siakam be basically Patrick Willis out there. Okay, that's pretty good, Kev. That was a good list. Covered a lot of topics. I have no idea how we found that many topics on a day like today.
Well, and this is
good
breaking.
Producing.
Yeah, it's good producing.
Interestingly, exactly. Kevin, I don't know if you've seen this. Tulane University is expanding.
Oh.
What?
Tulane University is expanding. It just came across the ticker.
Like where? Like
what? Were they? I don't. Are they? They're getting bought out by private equity.
It's going to be 4-Lane University.
Oh no! Wow.
Hey, give me your wrist. He's not supposed to tell that joke anymore. We outlawed that joke 2 years ago. And we have a Tulane flag up here.
All right.
So anyways, hey, Kevin Clark, this is Football with Kevin Clark. Check it out. Anything Kevin Clark's on is awesome.
That's
one
right.
of our favorite people.
Thanks, guys.
Been too long since we had him. I mean, have you been on one time?
I was on
Twice.
the day before I went to Omaha and ESPN, and I couldn't tell you guys.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right, dude. So it's been a while. We're super happy for you, man. We love watching you. So come back again.
Right back at you, man. Right back at you.
Thanks, my dude.